We would talk about the concept of Squatty Potty before it was even an idea, before we even named the name Squatty Potty. The name we came up with the name was kind of funny too, but it was always going to be like the health step. We were going to be this health alternative, like this alternative health product.
Hello and welcome to Starting Small. My name is Cameron Nagle, and what you're about to hear is a resilient story to an entrepreneur's journey over the brand that we know and consume today. At Starting Small, I believe that everyone has a story to tell under one philosophy. Everyone starts small. Even these founders have once started where you are, in their parents' kitchen, basement, out of a wagon, and many more. At Starting Small, we discuss the strategies used, the obstacles overcome, and the successes of an entrepreneur's journey. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of Starting Small, and make sure to leave a review to let us know how you enjoyed it. Hello, and thank you for tuning in to Starting Small. Today, I'm joined by Bobby Edwards of Squatty Potty. Bobby, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Cameron.
Of course. I'd like to start out with your upbringing. Where did you grow up, and what would you say your childhood was like?
Well, I grew up in Utah, and my dad never worked for another person. He never punched a time clock. He always worked for himself. And it was either feast or famine growing up. So it was either, we were rich or poor.
Yeah.
Named. But he was an entrepreneur, he's like me. And he, could have taken a job with the family business, and he didn't want to do that. And he just wanted to do his own thing. And so he did it. And, I'm the fifth of seven children. Grew up Mormon, of course. And, how to really, they taught us to be independent above all things, just be independent.
For sure. Growing up with that, would you say that you had an entrepreneurial mindset? Of course, later as you have your own venture, but I'm curious, in those early years, were you inspired by your father and what he was doing as well to help out?
I wasn't. No, I didn't like the poor parts. I didn't realize what my father had gone through, I think, until of course we all do as we become an adult, we realize what the parents went through. Yeah. And I didn't appreciate it until I was older. And so no, it wasn't that. I think everything just kind of happened. I kind of never really had a plan, It's just the way the cookie crumbled, it seems.
Yeah, for sure. Going into grade school and then going into college, where did you end up studying? What did you study? And what was that time period like for you?
Yeah. So again, going back to, my upbringing, I didn't love school growing up. I barely graduated high school. And it wasn't because I wasn't smart. It was because I didn't understand the social construct of where I grew up, and I was kind of bullied and teased a little bit, and I didn't have any friends, and I was just didn't. I think I was well liked, but I think I was maybe shy. I don't know what it was. I didn't like school, and as I graduated from high school, I was done. I was like, I'm done, and I just went to work, started working from, got a job and started working. And that's kind of how my family was. My parents did not encourage college. It's the weirdest thing. My own stepchildren they're going to school, of course.
Yeah.
So it's not sticking with me, but for them, it was just not the thing. It was not it was not a priority for them. It wasn't like, you have to go to school. It was like, okay, graduate high school, and then now you can go do your thing. Just like, yeah. And it's funny. I say I have 7 brothers and sisters. I have 6. There's 7 of us, and not one of us punched a clock for another person. And all of them are very successful. They've all got their own business, and they're all doing their thing, and they're all successful. Wow,
that's incredible. I'm curious. In those early years, as soon as you finished high school, what did you end up doing, and what fascinated you? What for work?
Yeah, so it was kind of anything I could get. I was a bike messenger, which was cool, kept me in shape. And then I really honestly just kind of went where I could find a good job, and networking through friends. I got a job at Ultradent, which they did this opalescence tooth whitening stuff, and I worked for them for a few years, and that was a good job. And then I got tired of Utah, and I wanted to move to California, so I moved to Los Angeles, and I got a job as a temp. I got a job as a temp, and that turned into a full-time job. And I was an assistant to the vice president of marketing.
Wow.
And she hired me on as her assistant, and then she hired me on as a copywriter because she could tell I was kind of witty and construct sentences, and I just threw together some copy for these websites. Oh, it was before the website, actually. I actually started doing the copywriting for the TV Guide, for the Fox television show. I'd write, like, tonight on The Simpsons, Marge has an existential crisis. Just kind of, it was like we had a tweet before tweeting. You had to come up with something that would catch the people, and they would print that in the TV Guide. And I did that for the Fox television shows, and that was a good job. I liked that because it didn't take me that long. I worked about 8 hours a week, and and then and from there, the lady, so my boss, she's like, well, we're starting a new department. It's called the online marketing department. And I was we're just doing print marketing was what we were doing before.
Yeah.
And so I moved into the online marketing department, which is the brand new, department. And we created websites for the television shows, which nobody had ever done. And we created the American Idol website, which was a giant thing that actually created money for Fox. And we became the darlings of the network, because we instead of costing them money, we became revenue for them.
Wow. That's incredible. I feel like much of this resonates with your ability with Squatty Potty. Some of the branding and marketing that went on with Squatty Potty it sounds like it's really resonating from your previous experience. It's really incredible. I'm curious then. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, it played a huge part into me developing the website and developing the Squatty Potty brand. Yeah, I learned a lot from that job. For
sure. Moving on to then, what's this time period like where you're getting inspired? I know something where your mother goes to see a doctor. What's the inspiration going into Squatty Potty? Were you still based in California at this time, working full time? What did this period look like, transitioning?
I was, and that became kind of an interesting period where, I became, I don't know what to say. I just wasn't really happy in California. I would come home and I take my younger brother for an example. My brother Sam, he was 4 years younger than me. I'd come home from California. He had a house. He had kids. He had all this stuff. I mean, and a life that I thought I would never ever be able to get in Southern California, which was probably true. And I'm like, what is he doing? He had his own business, and I realized he was doing his own thing. He was making his own money, and he had his own business, and it was doing a good, successful. And I think it's, I would look at that and I'd be like, I want that. And so after, I could, without an education, without a degree at the network, I was only going to get so far. I was never going to get above, a certain pay grade. And I could see that, and I could see they were working me more hours. My 8-hour weeks became 60-hour weeks with the American Idol franchise. And it just was no longer working for me. I was working too hard. I was using too many drugs, and I needed a break.
Yeah.
Ended up moving back home and moving to mom and dad's basement.
Wow.
And we hadn't been really close. I'm gay, and I came out at 17, and that was a big thing for in the early 90s to come out in Utah as gay.
Yeah. And
I didn't have a lot of contact with my family, and that was a time for me to just, I came home, and I didn't want to come home. This last thing I wanted to do was just going to be for 3 weeks, just to get my feet back on the ground, and
for sure,
just get myself restarted. And it ended up being, I'm still there. Yeah. I mean, I'm not my parents' basement, of course, but I'm still in Utah. Yeah. And it's just it was kind of a thing that happened, and so I moved back home with my mom to get things back on order. And then during that period, I started the business with my brother, which we sold, and then I started the business with mom. And that's when I developed my relationship with my parents. That was a lot more. We became very close at that period.
For sure.
We were able to reconcile everything and really come to terms with, find common ground where we could, work together. And we developed a love for each other that we lost over that 10 years of essentially being estranged for 10 years and not knowing your family, but not being there. I'd show up for Christmas, but I wasn't really there.
Yeah. During this time, where does the Squatty Potty kind of like idea evolve and the prototyping? I know your mother came back from the doctors. Who came up with the first idea?
Sure. So I was, looking through, I started taking courses I was interested in home design. Honestly, I wanted to become an architect or become a designer for, a developer or something like that. I've always been interested in architecture and design, and so I was taking some CAD classes at the Dixie College, the local college there in St. George. Mm-hmm. And my mom came up. My mom and I. We talked. So my mom had been to a doctor. So she said, put your feet up on a stool. And she started using a stool to help her eliminate. It worked. The concept worked, but the product was not perfect. She kind of came to me. She goes, you're taking those design classes. Can you design me a stool? And so I took that up on as a project, and I got on the computer and I designed the first Squatty Potty. We got some paint cans and phone books, literally. Wow. And we got the right height and the width, and that gave me the dimensions for the stool. And then I worked around the toilet to make it so it could tuck under, so it was more convenient. I did whatever mom told me. That's what I did. And I created it for her, and we cut it out of like CNC, made it out of wood, painted it white, and screwed it together. And I gave it to her, and she loved it. She just instantly, she's like, this is perfect, because now I can leave it under the toilet where it needs to be. I can tuck it away. Wow. And it was more comfortable for her. It was the perfect height, and she just loved it. So it was ergonomic for her, and she's like, wow. Used it for a good year, and then after about a year, she started giving away Christmas gifts. So, presents like Aunt Connie who had hemorrhoids, or, my sister-in-law was having a baby. And wow. So she would give it to them, and she just started giving them away. And I thought, she's crazy, but it's her poop stool, and she's liking it. Yeah. And she actually ended up giving them away for Christmas one year to everyone in the family. And then that kind of snowballed into people asking for it and people requesting it. And so one time I was making like 17 stools at one time, and I go, Mom, we just need let's throw up a website and see what happens. Essentially, we didn't, let's just see what people are looking for this. Obviously people are looking for this. And I was searching the web, and the concept was there, but there was no product to allow you to achieve this goal. Yeah. And so we created that.
Wow. That's incredible. So in those early years, was that pretty much all the digital side? Was that building yourself? How long did that take to launch the Squatty Potty online, and what did that look like?
Yeah, I mean, we built the first website. It was basically like a WordPress site. Yeah. Didn't have really shopping. The shop, the orders would come in, but nothing was connected, and we had to just hand process everything, hand build the stool. Well, we had the stools cut and then painted. Wow. They were by a guy in their neighborhood. Mm-hmm. Essentially, got a CNC machine, and then we would put them together, or we'd send them unassembled and they would have them assembly instructions, and the customer would put them together, right? Yeah. Even with all that, the first year we were in business, we sold almost $100,000 of Squatty Potties. Wow. And the second year we sold like almost 300,000, and then the third year it was like a $1.2 million year. Wow. It just crazy, wow. We realized at a certain point, I was like, we need to start doing these out of plastic. So we got some plastic injection molding, and that, it all happened organically. Honestly, wild. We were ready, we had the product and we were kind of ready with it, but, it just, like I said, that didn't seem like we could do anything wrong in that company. It was really crazy how it all came together.
That's incredible. I'm curious, as you scaled, how did you manage production? Would you guys ever get left behind? And this was still out of the home for 3 years? How did that work?
So the first 2 years we were out of the house, then we moved to a larger warehouse. Uh-huh. And at that point we started to make them, we started to get them plastic. We had the plastic ones made in China. We had, the tools were made in China. Oh no, they were made in China, and we'd order them, and they would come, the stools would come, and I ordered like 2,000 at one time, the first time. Uh-huh. And I looked at these, and this, half of a container came, not this, which is big for the first load. It seemed huge, and I loaded them from my container into the garage, and I thought, these are just going to collect dust. I'm like, how are we going to sell these? Yeah. Then 6 months later, Dr. Oz calls and wants us on the show, and then that changes everything. It actually started out with me reaching out to bloggers. This was before influencers were even a thing. It was internet bloggers, right? You had bloggers, you had health writers. Yeah. And I kind of found all their information, and I wrote them a letter saying, this is what this is, the Squatty Potty. This is the idea behind the concept. It helped my mom. It may help you. Yeah. If you like it, write about it. If you don't, write about it. I don't care. Yeah. Wow. And several hundred of these, it was we spent almost $20,000 on this project to get it out to influencers, right? That's where it paid off. That paid off tremendously. I mean, almost immediately we started getting vegan bloggers, lifestyle bloggers, and yoga bloggers writing about us, and it was incredible. The response was just so incredible. I just couldn't believe that people were writing about our poop stool.
That's amazing. Would you say that those were some of your early marketing campaigns? Was that, I mean, most of this was organic. Would you say that that was the first big paid marketing campaign you did, was through influencers, bloggers?
Oh yeah. We didn't pay them. We just paid for the product. That was just for the product and shipping.
Wow.
For a lot of money.
For sure.
I still, well, we ended up doing paid posts, of course, in later years, but we never did it in the beginning, ever. Like I did everything. It was never really even asked for. People didn't ask to be paid back then.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's really fascinating. I know, like, today specifically, I work in digital marketing, and that's like shift. The creator economy is such, it's an own world, and they expect huge payouts where sometimes the company might not receive an ROI, where product gifting back in the day, which if you're able to leverage that, that's incredible.
Yeah. But I knew, when we would talk about the concept of Squatty Potty, before it was even before we even named the name Squatty Potty, we came up with the name was kind of funny too, but it was always going to be like the health step. We were going to be this health alternative, like this alternative health product.
Yeah.
That's what our first vision was. But I would talk about it at dinner parties, or I talk about it to friends, where you're supposed to be squatting to poop, and whatever, and it was just, people would be like scratching their heads, and then most of them would giggle and chuckle. They would think it was funny. And then then you'd hear back from them, a few days later. Now, about that stool, tell me, they were curious about it.
Yeah.
But I could see it was something that was novel and funny, and that people wanted to talk about it. For some weird reason, people wanted to talk about this poop stool. It was even before it was a concept. It was a thing, So I thought, people are going to love this thing. They're going to want to talk. It's going to be one of those conversation starters, because it became a conversation starter around everyone we gave it to, right?
Yeah.
When this news around the toilet, people were talking about it, and we'd get this feedback, and I could see that it was something that had some virility to it.
Sure.
That I felt like had some virility to it, and some humor to it.
Yeah.
So I was like, let's go with, instead of going with like the health step, the Squatty Potty became like the Squatty Potty.
Wow. That's amazing. I want to go into your Shark Tank appearance. I'm really fascinated. I've had a few Shark Tank alumni on the podcast, actually, and they shared after airing, they could see a massive spike in sales that day, tapes off through the week, etc. Was this also a huge turning point for the Squatty Potty and the future? And what was that experience like for you?
It was, yeah. So I tried out, auditioned for the Squatty Potty, for Shark Tank.
Yeah.
I actually submitted on the website. It said, submit your idea here. And I'm sure, I thought I did it. I pushed send, and I'm never going to hear from these people again. And like 2 weeks later, I had a producer call me and say, I'm familiar with your product because my blogger that I follow talks about this product.
Wow.
So again, those early seeds of like just small things paid off, because this person who had the power to pick who came on the show was familiar with the product because she followed a blogger that I'd written about 2 years ago.
Wow.
And she goes, I'm interested in this. I want to have you guys on. So she just held my hand and put us in. Like, actually, I lie, because the first time she tried to put us through, the producer said, no way. Like the guys up, they said, we're not, this is we're ABC, we're like family network. We're not going to do this content. We don't even know how we can talk about this content on the show. And so we'd almost gotten an air date and everything, and then they got canceled. And then the next year, so I thought that Shark Tank dreams were done. The next year, she gives us a call. She goes, you know what? There's a new producer. I want to talk to him about your product because I really want to get you guys on the show. And we just walked on. Like she held our hand all the way through. It was amazing.
Wow. Wow. What was that experience like? That pitching process once you made it to Shark Tank and you were on there from your POV?
So I went on with my mother, and we. It's so nerve-wracking. It really is. None of it is scripted. The only thing scripted is the first 60-second speech where you essentially give your pitch, right?
Yeah.
Sharks, blah 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 blah. This is help my family, and it will help you. And you hand out this thing, and then they then they come back with their vitriol, either they like you, and luckily they liked us. So not all of them did. I got some negative. We did get some negative feedback, personal stuff from Barbara, which was interesting. But they liked it. Lori had heard about it from Dr. Oz.
Wow.
You're on Dr. So she'd heard about it. She goes, "Didn't you see you on Dr. Oz?" And she was all in. Kevin was all in, and it's interesting because people are like, "Oh, why would you go on?" Why would you go? Because we were already solely like $7 million in business. We had legs, like we had a tight shell, but I knew, the opportunity to get on that platform and I would have given away 5% for 50 cents.
Yeah.
I knew that like, this is what we have to do. Like I knew the power of publicity. I knew the power of, eyes on your product. And that's why, like, we just got to do it, Mom. I don't care. Like, let's just do it. And it's funny because I want to say this. She offered us some product numbers like 700,000 for, my goal was to get $700,000 for 10%. And she offered us, we ended up settling on $350,000 for 10%, which actually ended up being 5%. So we ended up getting the number anyway. But we shook on the show, and I feigned that I was disappointed. Getting the $350,000, but in my mind, I was like, "Oh yes, we're good."
I'm curious. Taking that deal with Lori, what would you say was the big takeaway with working with Lori? Was she hands-on during the project after that, and especially towards your commercials, which I know really amplified later? Was that a part of Shark Tank as well?
No. So the Lori was actually against doing the commercial. She said, "No way," unequivocally, no. Like, no, we're not doing it. We're not going to waste our money on that commercial.
Yeah.
This was the exact words. And I hate to, I'm just telling the truth.
For sure.
Lori has her strengths, and Lori was incredibly valuable at doing things with Bed Bath & Beyond and other things. But, when she said no, my heart was just, I was broken. And my dad was too. We were so upset about it. Because we had gotten a pitch from the Harmon brothers who did this commercial for us, and we loved it. And but it was not the one that we ended up doing. But I just wanted to do that. I wanted to do that commercial. You'd watch the Poopery commercial, and because the Poopery commercial came out like right before we would have come out before Poopery, but theirs came out like right at the time we were doing ours. And I'm like, oh look, now we can't even do a poop product. And so after 3 months after that, my dad came in and he goes, Bobby, we should just do that. Let's just do it.
Yeah.
And we didn't even tell Lori. I didn't tell Lori until the day before it aired that we had done it.
Wow.
And I said, Lori, you're going to find out tomorrow that we're going to be releasing something, and here it is. Well, in the end, it's your company, it's your decision, and I, hope it works. And it did.
It did. Yeah. I'm curious from the creative side, what was like the direction when creating the commercial? I know comedy is heavily used. That's what makes the organic talk evolve. What was the vision when creating the commercial?
So it evolved. It started out as us doing with ice cream and an ice cream truck. It was like this ice cream truck, and it was kind of like Frank Hill from House of Cards, where he would face the camera and be like, oh, stern to the camera, and then he'd back to serving ice cream to these kids and be like, oh, the ice cream thing the ice cream wouldn't come, and there was a kink in the ice cream hose. It was some weird. It was funny, and I thought it was. I don't remember much about it. I remember it being like House of Cards with this kind of Frank character that would face the fourth wall and talk to and it was drier and probably a little more smart.
Yeah,
but we get up there and we're like, it got what color is the ice cream? And we're like, we can't have brown.
Yeah.
White. And then it was like, let's rainbow. And then it became like, well, it should be unicorn poop. And then it'd be like, then it turned into the unicorn became the main character. And it was like, it literally in 24 hours, it turned from that to this pooping rainbow with ice cream. And the writer went home and he wrote it that night, and he came the next morning and wrote this, and he read the script, and verbatim, there was one or two words that were maybe changed. But that script that he read that morning was the script we used.
Wow.
And me and my dad were on the floor. We were dying. We were just, both of us, everyone was laughing. It was incredibly funny. I mean, it was really, really funny, and it really, really worked. That's the thing about that commercial, is it worked. Yeah. Sold Squatty Potties like crazy.
Wow, that's incredible. I'm curious, as Squatty Potty evolved, what would you say was the percentage between like retail and selling e-commerce? Would you say much of the business shifted to retail, or was it pretty balanced? How did that look?
Yeah, so it was always going to be, we were always going to be in retail. I mean, I went to every headquarter for every retailer, Kmart, Kohl's, Lowe's, and that was our push. And we realized that, Amazon was selling like over half. Amazon quickly became over half of our business. And then it became like 80% of our business.
Yeah.
And why are we wasting our time with freaking Kmart that's dying? and you get no margins, you get nothing for the store. They want 60%. And, unless you're going through like Costco, which Costco is amazing, but Costco is not sustainable, but it's really, 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 it can change lives, changed our life too.
Wow.
But I'll stick with a story of a direct to consumer, and we worked tightly with Facebook to create these ads that were initially, this is the first of their kind, really. Click here and in social media.
Yeah.
And they worked with us, and they gave us a big, we got a big Facebook Business of the Year award for developing this click here and buy now. I worked with the team to find it, and we were one of the first kind of beta things for the Facebook ads that you saw. So became so popular, right?
Yeah.
Squatty Potties were the first ones, and one of the first brands that they picked to develop that.
Wow.
And I could see that was that direct to consumer was where it's at. We got better margins. It was like,
wow.
And then it became us competing against Amazon.
Yeah.
SquattyPotty.com versus Amazon.com, which is so much more on SquattyPotty.com.
Yeah.
But Amazon sure is easy.
Yeah, for sure. I'm curious, through some of that marketing, what would you say was the main demographic? If you're able to depict that, I know it's a universal product, but did that shift?
That's the thing that always blew us away. I always thought it was going to be older women, 45 plus women, or mom, and it became like 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, millennials at that time who were millennials, who became our number one demographic, because of the marketing.
Yeah.
But the thing about going after the youth is that they're the influencers for the adults, right? Somebody told me one day, 12-year-olds and gay men decide everything what's going to be popular. That's it.
Yeah.
If you want to know what's going to be popular next, go look at what your 12-year-old girls do looking at, and that's going to be the next trend, right?
Yeah.
So I think that demographically obviously bought it for their parents, and then it ended up being it. I say the mainstay now is shifted older now. Now it's more of a household thing. Definitely shifted older, but in those early years, it completely was not what I thought would be the demographic.
For sure. Well, I like to conclude each episode with this. If you could share one piece of advice with an aspiring entrepreneur, maybe something you've learned or regret, what would you say that would be?
I'm gonna have to say, for so long we had an idea. We had this we pretty much nailed the concept of this poop stool or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I thought, I need to find somebody out there who has the silver bullet that can make everything happen for me, right?
Yeah.
And we wasted so much time and money trying to hire that person and find that person, because the only person that cared about it was me and my mom. That's it. I mean, we cared about it enough to make it happen. So we had to make it happen. Everything happened, from getting the merchant account to learning how to do Amazon. Sometimes that's what you have to do. You are the only one that can make it happen. And you don't need to look out there. They don't have the answers.
Yeah.
It all come from within you. And that's, and it's true for our product. And I think for a lot of people, people think they're going to find that person, that's savior, that's going to help them make this happen, or hire that one person that's going to, teach them, it didn't happen that way. I think the way that it happened for us is that it was always within us, and we made it happen.
For sure. Amazing. Well, Bobby, thank you so much for joining me today. And to the listeners out there, make sure to check out Squatty Potty at squattypotty.com.